Hello. Well, today's video is on the tornado outbreak sequence of May 21st to May 26th of 2011. This outbreak happened 1 month after the 2011 Super. April happens to come before May. Go figure. Before we go into anything, I do want to do actually a slight recap of the 2011 tornado season. There were 1,700 separate tornadoes in 2011. 771 of those were from April alone. 322 were from May. That is 21% of all tornadoes from the Super and 14% from this outbreak that we're going to be talking about. April 2011 is the absolute most active month for tornadoes in history. Absolutely zero questions about it. And we're going to obviously start with our overview, of course. So early May 2011 was very quiet. Mother Nature decided to give the United States a break after two separate supers. Yeah, there were indeed two separate super outbreaks. One happened before the super outbreak in 2011 that we all know. That one that happened before was there were no tornadoes above EF3, so that's why it's just less notable. But of course, a month later, a bunch of small systems, I think it was around two, form in Kansas. From the 22nd onward, there were dozens of tornadoes each day. Over 5 days, 241 tornadoes were confirmed. That injured around 1,500 people, inflicted $7 billion in damage, and unfortunately ended the lives of 181 people. There will be 7 notables here, all of them in chronological order, of course. And most of these tornadoes formed in the Lake Superior to Texas column. This is a little bit more diagonal column here that you see for the storm reports on the 22nd. Our first notable here, of course, has to be one of the absolute worst because, of course, this one was on the 21st. I think it was. I may be rambling right now. But this is the Joplin, Missouri EF5. I still remember this being covered, and that's a decade ago. This tornado injured 1,150 people and killed 158 and caused $2.8 billion in damage. It's on the ground for only 38 minutes, and this tornado was so strong that manhole covers were removed from the ground. That kind of, for this to happen, for manhole covers to be removed, this tornado had to have had winds of at least 200 miles per hour. So that is just a little bit intense. 75% of Joplin received damage, and of that 75%, 25 was completely destroyed. There was a longer than average 17-minute lead time on this tornado, but extremely surprisingly, this tornado was not even PDS warned. So this thing didn't even have a tornado emergency attached to it, which is baffling to me. Our second notable here happened north of Canton, Oklahoma, and was an EF3. We at least know that it killed one, but it is unknown if it injured 1 or 2 people. This thing had a short course of 21 kilometers. This thing progressed into a wedge and also progressed in terms of strength at the same time. This happens very frequently with tornadoes. Usually these start off as a classic, relatively thick rope at the start as they get going. Then they widen and also strengthen. There are, of course, exceptions to this rule, but that is usually how tornadoes work, and we actually don't know why. The CF3 managed to debark some trees. I would assume that these are older trees that did not have very strong bark. Usually this is done by EF4s and 5s. This is at least a high-end EF3 at the very end of its life. What unfortunately wasn't able to find too many pictures of this thing though. What I was able to find, however, was the very beginning parts as it transformed. As you can see, our relatively thick rope down into a stovepipe, and then it transitions to a wedge with a pretty well defined satellite right there. This is a combination of notables 3 and 4. This is the Lukiba to Hinton, Oklahoma EF3 and the Hinton to Guthrie, Oklahoma EF5. The EF3 preceded the EF5. The totals of their tracks equals 119 kilometers, with them being relatively evenly split, but with the EF5 having a longer track. The EF5 specifically ended 9 lives and injured 181 people. Sorry, injured 100. I think I said ended. I did not mean that. Don't mind me. There is a seamless transition of these tornadoes actually seen here at this path. That is because it was practically instant recycling, which is something that is not usually done. All of the damage photos you see here, the debarked trees, a foundation that is cracked, and an oil rig, was all done by the EF5. A truck that weighed 9,100 kilos was tossed a mile, and this oil rig that I just talked about, which weighs almost 1,000,000 kilos, 860,000, was rolled 3 times. That is insane to think about, because I, being a gamer, cannot lift 1 kilo. Just kidding. I can probably lift like maybe 3. This tornado thankfully was indeed PDS warned. Again, PDS meaning particularly dangerous situation. So good on Oklahoma and WS for doing that. Honestly, shame on whatever Missouri NWS was warning the Joplin tornado. As you can see, a very, very strong couplet here and on radar. It's a not very well defined hook there, but there is a little ball that's a very embedded hook. Our 5th notable happened from Chickasha to Moore, Oklahoma. This was an EF4. That injured 48 and killed 1 and pathed 51 kilometers. This thing touched down as a cone and grew from there. Again, as usual. As we can see with these progressive photos right here. An SUV was thrown 300 yards, which is around, I'm going to say like 280 meters. My conversions there are not the best. And this SUV was reduced to a sphere. So pretty well damaged, I'd say. This tornado was known to be very inconsistent and was possibly even EF5. EF5 ratings for the scoured pavement as well as extreme damage to a cement dome right here. That's pretty intense. And this thing also, of course, had a similar path to the 1999 May 3rd EF5. Sorry, F5. It was not an EF scale, wasn't a thing in 99. Our 6th notable also happened in Oklahoma, from Bradley to Colesby, again, Oklahoma. This is an EF4. Pictures of which here at the top, middle, and lower left. This tornado injured 61 and thankfully did not kill a soul. This thing did, however, track a more than true average, 37 kilometers, but in the grand scheme of all of the notables that I've talked about, this is relatively short. This thing was also very inconsistent, particularly early in its lifespan. However, cycloidal debris impact scars were noticed later on in fields. Cycloidal debris scars are simply just the winds tearing up small pieces of the ground in fields, like I said. It is possible that this thing was an EF5, however, since there's no damage indicator that proves that it was an EF5, it cannot be truly rated one. And reported skyfall of debris occurred in Norman, Oklahoma, which is, I'm trying to find this thing on this map here. Let's see, there's Bridge Creek, so Norman would be a little bit over here, I think. So a ways away from where the tornado was, I'll say that. Part 7 we have here. Oh, whoops, oops, I thought I had more. Shh. Part 7 here is our last tornado here. The Branch to Rosetta, Oklahoma, EF4, which injured 27 and killed 4. This thing tracked for a very long time, I would assume, 76 kilometers. Unless this thing was traveling 76 kilometers per hour, it's going to be on the ground for just a little bit. This thing also was an absolute monster, maxed out at 2 kilometers wide. That is very big. This thing, like the past two, was inconsistent and was mainly EF2 for most of its life. And this is the last violent tornado of the outbreak. It's also the last notable. Significance of this event should be noticeable. The Joplin EF5 in particular has some very costly lessons to it, literally. But this outbreak is one of the longest, spatially largest, and most intense outbreaks. It's among those, I should say. The Joplin EF5 in particular is the 7th deadliest in history, the very costliest tornado, and again was not even PDS warned, which is, like I said before, a shame, to be honest. This thing should have been put under a tornado emergency. Again, this was only 1 month after the 2011 Super, and therefore cemented 2011 as the year of the tornadoes, without a doubt. If you read up on 2011, it is absolutely extreme to see what happened in that year, I should say, not month. Although April 2011 surely is a month to behold with tornadoes, like I said. But that will be all for this video. There will be plenty more Outbreak slides, of course. And if you're not, go check all of them out. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see ya.